to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin. This is Maggie. And today's topic is pretending not to know. And I think this could be a very, very interesting thing to discuss because there's so many things in the world that when we know about them, we are compelled to take action, or it shifts our way of being in one way or another. And there's a lot of responsibility that comes with knowing. So we get to look at this conversation today, not just about what we're pretending not to know about ourselves, but also what we're pretending not to know about the world around us. So it should be an adventure today. In any case, before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding into your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, and bringing vital life energy throughout your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And this time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating every cell, electrifying every electron, every molecule, and bringing electrical, vital energy and brilliance into and beyond your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, any remaining stress, fatigue, and negativity. And now let's just gently press our palms together and very softly rub your fingers against your palms to feel the deliciousness of that sensation and bring yourselves present here, right now. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, Rosalind. So good to have you here. Happy Friday to you as well. And we're going to have a bit of a provocative conversation today. I guess the idea is that hopefully most of our conversations together are provocative, but this one might be in even in a new class. What are we pretending not to know? And so what comes to mind is the ostrich with its head in the sand. I don't know if they actually do that, but somehow that's an iconic image. In any case, what do we pretend not to know in order to function in from one day to the next? You know, it may be things that we're pretending not to know about ourselves. It may be things that we're pretending not to know about the world around us so that we can continue. So I've been listening. I've been listening to a sort of a summit series, and um, it's talking about it kind of um, financial collapse and all kinds of things like that. And I think one of the things that we're pretending not to know is how fragile our ecosystem is. And I don't just mean um, ecology in terms of nature and our environment and what we're doing to it. I mean, that's certainly something that kind of on a day-to-day basis as we go through our moment to moment, we're pretending not to know that we're facing a climate crisis that could be completely devastating to our civilization. But what else are we pretending not to know? So when we talk about the fragility of our ecosystem, what we're very, very, very reliant on electronic communication, right? I mean, that's how we communicate with each other through this show on a daily basis. And what if, you know, there can be a solar flare on the sun um, that could wipe out our electronic communication. I don't want to be all doom and gloom today, because this isn't about being doom and gloom. But I think it's really interesting to look at what we're pretending not to know in order to function. And there's so much. Um, I think that in order to function, it's necessary, it's essential to be putting our attention on what works. It's just so interesting to me, the assumptions. We live by assumptions. We assume that there's going to be water when we turn on the faucet, that we're going to have heat, that we're going to have ample food supply, that we're going to have internet access, that the car's going to start, that we have gas, to go from here to there, that our health is going to be okay, um, that we have mobility. There's so many things that we take for granted. And so I think the biggest thing that we're pretending not to know is how fragile things are. And and also, maybe one of the things that on the more positive side that we are pretending not to know is our power. And I think I want to go in that direction, because putting our attention on empowering thoughts and notions is something that I believe forwards us, um, while at the same time being able to recognize that we're pretending not to know some other things that maybe are not as empowering, or maybe by knowing them that it becomes empowering, by allowing ourselves to bring these other possibilities into awareness. Then we can perhaps take more positive action. But one of the things that I believe we're pretending not to know is our power, and our power to influence and create change. And I have been, well, last night for movie night, I invited you guys to join us for movie night through Sustainability Now. We showed a movie called Tapped, Tapped, and it's about the bottled water industry. And it was eye opening for everyone that watched it. It was life changing, in fact, because I don't drink bottled water, but I used to. And I can guarantee you, if you watch this film, you will not drink bottled water again. And a number of the reasons for that are health reasons, because of the chemicals that get released into the water. But there are also a number of other reasons. The bottled water companies are are taking our water, the water from communities, from our water tables, from our aquifers. They are taking what is a community resource and then selling it back to the community in toxic containers that they're taking no responsibility for. And I'm not just talking about plastic waste, but the chemicals that are leached into the water are truly, truly toxic. And so, from every vantage point, bottled water and any kind of beverage that's in a plastic bottle, for in fact, is really truly dangerous to our health and our environment and our economy. And so it's this, how when you know something, you can't unknow it. But we do manage somehow to put these things in the periphery of our awareness, so that we can continue. So Elaine says, I don't live by those assumptions: food, water, home, etc. For me, those things have not always been there. But through these experiences, I know now life is not fragile, but infinite intelligences and evolving in every now. So, Elaine, I so appreciate your input. I really, really do. And it's interesting to me to see both sides, because in one respect, I agree with you 1,000% that life and this incredible existence of ours is a constant evolution of infinite intelligences. I agree with that 100%. And I also see how our construct of life, the way that we live it, is actually quite fragile. Like the systems that we have, um, it's interesting how you can have the polarities coexisting, because I do believe that it's not one or the other that's true. It's kind of both and that there can be a cataclysmic event that changes everything. And yes, there's tremendous resilience. And I agree with you ultimately that it is about infinite intelligence in evolution. And yet, I recognize that, for instance, if there were a big electromagnetic pulse, it would knock out the internet. And what would happen if the internet were knocked out? Things would be radically, radically different, right? Like so many systems that we depend on would be disrupted. Not to say that we wouldn't find a way back, but these things are possibilities as well. And I'm not looking to dwell on that, and I'm not looking to cultivate fear around it. I think that we do get to choose to put our attention on um, our infinite nature, for sure. But there is this coexistence of perception and dimensions. And so even certain ideas and beliefs and behaviors, like if we look at how we can have a one-time learning experience that changes our patterns and behaviors. Now, some people that were on the call last night and watched this film, Tapped, I can't recommend it enough. It's life-changing. Um, some people, they will never drink bottled water again, and they were drinking bottled water. Think, especially, so many of us were driven to drinking bottled water because we believed it was healthy. It was healthy to be drinking water all the time, and bottled water was the way to access it. And it's really, I think one of the things that we pretend not to know is how far reaching the consequences are of our choices. So when we think about bottled water, maybe, if you're still drinking bottled water, maybe you're thinking about, well, I want to stay hydrated, and this is convenient, and water is a healthy beverage, and I'm interested in taking care of my health. And what we don't think of, or what we're pretending not to know, is more about that whole supply chain and what's behind it. And at the very least, what we know is that fossil fuels are being extracted to create the plastic for the bottled water. So there's all these heavy duty chemicals in the plastic, right? They get leached into the water. And so while we're trying to do something that we believe is healthful, because we've been conditioned to believe that tap water is unsafe, and in some communities it is indeed unsafe, but a lot of bottled water, the fact is that a lot of bottled water is filtered tap water. Legit, it is truly just filtered tap water. Elaine says, I'm okay with not being agreed with, and I'm super okay with being wrong. For me, we create our reality. Is one is one really ready to remember who one really is and create or shift one's reality, expanding awareness? I'm okay with not being agreed with and being wrong as well, Elaine. I'm not saying any of what I say as truth with a capital T. You know, everything that I am talking about is working hypotheses. You know, that's how I relate to all this stuff. And I believe that we do create our own experience. And and I also recognize that there's a lot of shared experience. And thank you, Elaine. Um, there's a lot of shared experience, and you know, if we choose to look at the machinations of the material world, there are many ramifications for our choices and our behavior that we pretend not to know. And at least as a culture, and certainly as I think that that's true about individuals. Maybe there are even things that we pretend not to know about ourselves. And I think this pretending not to know is a bit of it's a survival mechanism, and it's an effective one up to a point. And then when we pretend not to know, it's threatening, it's damaging to our well-being. So for instance, pretending not to know that we're in facing a climate crisis and that we need to take important action toward that, then then that becomes hazardous to our welfare, because we're not taking the necessary action to correct a circumstance that needs to be shifted. Um, yeah, sorry, Thomas. Yep. So Thomas says, so bottled water, bottled juices, i.e. palm vitamin water, my sugarless flavored water, fruit, etc., is unhealthy. Great. Yeah. Well, it is. It is. It's unhealthy for you because of the pollutants that are coming from that petroleum based plastic. And there are also plastic particles that are in any of these plastic bottles. And and there's leaching. Not only that, but look at the process of creating those bottles. It has to do with pulling fossil fuels from the ground, which destroys all kinds of communities and ecosystems. And I'm laughing because it's such an unimaginable thing that we have allowed all of this to happen. And the fact that we have now, we get to see it hopefully in Technicolor to be able to bring about the changes we need to bring about. So hi, Isabel, welcome, welcome. Great to have you here with us. Elaine says, for me, there's nothing in this world more powerful than the intelligences that run our human body. It's beyond belief into knowing for me. This I have experienced for myself. I agree with you that we don't, as human beings, we don't have anything comparable in our conscious intelligence that's comparable to the way that nature works in our bodies, in the bodies of other creatures on this planet with us. So please, 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 I implore you, please watch the movie Tapped, and then make your own assessment as to whether you're going to consume anything in single-use plastic bottles. Uh, it's hazardous to your health, to our environment, and the way that that the water is mined by these bottled water companies, it's really deplorable. It's just crazy. So Thomas says, if we think about all the stuff in what we eat, we would never do anything ever again. And Isabel says fat. Are you talking about that? I'm not sure what you're talking about there, Isabel. And well, this is not a call to never do anything ever again. It's really more a call to action. And that we do have the capability. There are towns that have banned bottled water. And the thing about bottled water that's even more insidious than, oh, I'm sorry, thanks, Isabel. No, not fat. I'll put it in the chat. Tapped. It's about bottled water, the bottled water industry. So any kind of beverage that's packaged in plastic, it poses a danger to your personal health and your, as well as the environment. But besides that, the way that this water it's actually stolen. The water is stolen from the communities where these companies have gotten permits and are in certain cases sucking the community dry of its water, literally. And Thomas says, I, for one, do not want to see the condition of the kitchen of the restaurant I eat at, and for good reasons. So that's another thing we're pretending not to know, right? We're pretending not to know that there might be roaches in the kitchen, or there might be who knows what, right? There's a lot that we pretend not to know to keep the convenience and comforts of our lives. Elaine says, I don't buy bottled water because of the waste and where to put the bottles after you drink the water. It just piles up. So I quit. And that in and of itself, Elaine, is a legitimate reason to not drink bottled water. And that's one of the big reasons that I stopped drinking bottled water. And I won't receive bottled water if it's given to me. Like, at conferences and whatever, they put bottled water at every table, and it's like, no, not doing the bottled water thing. And in fact, somebody asked me if I wanted some water the other day. I was at an appointment and I said, sure, that would be great. They gave me a plastic bottle of water. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was maybe a glass of water. And I gave it back, and they had Perrier. Now, maybe the lesser of two evils, maybe not so much, but the Perrier was at least in a glass bottle. And so I received that. And now after seeing this movie, I don't know that I would receive that either. In fact, I'm going to be going for another appointment at this location, and I'm going to recommend that they get a Berkey water filter. A Berkey water filter is a water filter that's not using plastic components, and it's I think it's spelled, I'm not sure, Burkey, maybe, Berkey water filter. And it's a big container, and it is supposed to be one of the best water filters on the market. And I believe it's using natural ingredients to filter the water. So back to you, Elaine, talking about how Maggie, Maggie, she stopped for a second, maybe. Um, Talking about the waste of the plastic. I mean, this plastic stays around forever. The companies that are producing it are not taking any responsibility for the waste or the recollection or the reprocessing for all this waste that they're generating. And um, and I just recently heard that there is some action to be getting legislation that requires the companies that are making these products bottled in plastic to have a warning label that says what the dangers are of consuming something that's packaged in plastic, because we've all assumed that that it wouldn't be available to us if it weren't safe, right? So this is another thing that we're pretending not to know, is that maybe the manufacturers of things are not necessarily having our safety at um, in mind, you know. So I think one of the things that I know is that the lower we eat on the food chain, the less processed foods we consume, the better off we are. Now, if we think about that, one of the reasons that we're better off with less processed food is because of the packaging, because the packaging can be toxic. And that's something that we pretended not to know. And it's really interesting when we take a step to confront the things that we've been denying. And we talked about this a little bit, essentially, this week, when we were looking at what are some of our patterns that are persistent, that we kind of didn't want to be looking at. And so now we're looking at things in the world, today anyway, looking at things in the world that we might be pretending not to know. Like I know for myself, because, well, Elaine says natural action technologies.com, structured water company. Okay, so Elaine, you were mentioning structured water, and structured water is an amazing thing. I've heard all kinds of things around structured water, that some of the systems are not real and others are. And so let me finish. So naturalactiontechnologies.com, structured water company. I love it. They even have a small system you can carry with you and structure anything you drink. And so the idea of structured water is that we are largely water. And so when water has a structure to it, you can look at Emoto, EMOTO, Emoto's experiments with water and crystalline structures, that when water has a clear structure to it, it it propagates that structure. So it brings our bodies into alignment and balance. And that's the theory behind it. Structuring water, like the technology behind structuring water, that's a whole other thing. If you start researching it, and I have researched it a bit, there are all different kinds of technologies out there, some more legitimate than the other. And guys, I totally forgot. I'm so sorry. I have to run. I love you. I have a client appointment right now. So I wish you a wonderful, wonderful week. And this was really, really provocative. And I so appreciate you engaging with me. And I wish you a wonderful weekend. Let's take a look at the things that we're pretending not to know. Much, much love to you. Hope to see you Monday. Have a wonderful